to listen to this afterwards. Okay, thank you all very much for being here. You're at the 360-degree volunteer engagement idea exchange, otherwise called the exchange, because as with lots of things with AARP, we make really long titles for things. Sometimes we have acronyms for them, and sometimes we just have long titles. But thank you all very much for being here. You have come to August, and I think I said in my invitation letter, we're almost at the end of the year or starting to think about that. So today's topic is kind of a long one because it seems like I have this thing with lots of words. 2025 is calling. How do we ensure meaningful volunteer involvement in planning? Okay, that's our topic for today. Dr. Clark, would you like to take over the questioning, please?
I will, and let me put it in the chat real quick because I know some people like to read along as I ask the question. So let me make a copy of it real quick. It is so good to be here today. Sometimes you just miss your AARP colleagues and volunteer partners and staff partners, and today is one of those days. So here's the question. How do you inform volunteers of organizations' accomplishments? And do you use those accomplishments to plan your next year's activities? And if so, how? So all of that's in the chat. Let me repeat it again. How do you inform your volunteers of your organization's accomplishments so that we can kind of step in and say hip hip hooray with everyone else? And do you use those accomplishments to plan next year's activities? And if so, how? How do you do that? Let's see who has some responses to that. I know that there's many, many people that have responses. Linda, I knew I could count on you.
Oh, goodness. Now I know it's an obligation of mine. I think this is a really interesting question. It's different than the question Deborah asked, actually, in a little way about planning for next year. To me, that sounded more like goals. And goals are a whole different thought in my head, anyway, versus organizational accomplishments. I really like this question that you guys have put together here. I think we could do something very similar to what we did last year with the goals after the staff had made had their retreat and figured what the plan was for this year. We got together with the volunteers and had a luncheon in the office and had that experience of downloading information to them, asking for input, and doing it with staff being present. So that could add in there the organizational accomplishments rather than just the goals, also sing the praises of what has happened over the last year. So I would propose that to our staff as something they might consider doing again. Lunch is really a great idea because it pulls people in that might sit there and wonder, do I really want to sit for 2 hours in an office? But that seems to draw folks when you have sandwiches and cookies add to it. So that's how I'd start your conversation.
Well, thank you. And we always enjoy however you contribute to the conversation, and you always have something meaningful to share. So thank you, Linda. Anyone else? And food is always that common denominator that brings the conversation about. Breaking bread and sharing ideas is always helpful. Sandy, I see that you want to talk.
So at the Information Center at the Mall of America, we have a monthly meeting. And so that's where we introduce our new volunteers. And we talk about accomplishments that we've done during the year, or maybe something specific that somebody did for us since the last meeting, and we acknowledge it in our meetings.
And
So-
if you ever have a chance to go to the Mall of America Information Center, it is phenomenal. Isn't that one of the original information centers, Sandy?
Yeah, actually in October, we'll be celebrating 30 years.
That is wonderful.
Can I ask Sandy a question here?
Yeah.
Sandy, if this takes place in a mall, how do you go about having a meeting? I guess I don't understand.
We have an office, it's like a branch office off of the state office. So we have an office and a conference room there.
Oh, fabulous.
With a big front counter. So, and we're right by one of the exits. So as they're coming in, we're catching people. And they have like driver safety classes and a whole bunch of other classes we hold out there. It holds
That's
about
awesome.
35 to 40 people.
Perfect.
It's really impressive. I had the honor of being able to go there and visit, and they have some real dedicated volunteers that love staffing that location. So it is really a gem that they have at the Mall of America.
Thank you.
Well, Sandy, I actually have one question for you about what you said. You say you share the accomplishments each month, each meeting. Is there some way that you're keeping track of that information so that you can use it? I mean, is it captured? Is it written so that you can repeat it, share it with people who, hey, this is what we did. This is.
Yes. So between myself and Aaron Simon Skoglund, we can kind of keep track that way. But also we have one of our volunteers puts out a monthly newsletter. And so she goes through the meeting and hits the highlights and puts it in the newsletter. So that's another way we can keep track and go back and look at.
Mhm.
So that kind of helps us out. And that gets the word out then to everybody that missed the meeting. And it also goes to the state office. So
Great.
they see what's going on, and that helps them with their planning.
Okay.
Now,
Did I
for those
answer
of
it?
you who, my apologies, for those of you
No.
who just joined us, the question that we're discussing is, how do you inform volunteers of your organization's accomplishments? And do you use those accomplishments to plan for next year's activities? I know there were a few people that joined since I posed that question. Anyone else have what you do that you want to contribute or share? Jay.
Yes, I was just gonna say we're a little more spread out I think in Missouri than a lot of other states, because we have these sort of multiple metro areas and multiple teams. So while our teams are having in-person meetings, we kind of have to travel around to the different places to report out on accomplishments. As the advocacy director, I wind up doing a lot of that right after the legislative session. But we also have multiple ways of communicating with them. So like best practices from other groups throughout the state, et cetera. But then also we try to bring at least a few of our lead volunteers into the actual planning process so that they can participate in that and bring back what they've learned from their individual groups after they've participated in or learned from accomplishments that we can then use for the next year.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Anyone else want to share?
Hi, this is Hillary from Georgia. How are you?
Good, Hillary, how are you?
I am fine. Since I'm in the midst of putting together a Hub Dialer campaign for next week, I'll talk about one of the things we do with our success every time is we actually do a daily update on their goals. So if they have the goal of making 2,000 calls, every single day they know where they stand in their calls. So it's a daily reminder of where their success is and how they're making an impact. Then at the end, we do a celebration that when it's completed, we talk about it then. Any recommendations or suggestions on how it can be better, what was the obstacles, how we change it. Just now looking at the script, they asked me to make sure there were numbers in there versus so many links to website. It's much easier over the phone to give phone numbers than it is a website. So we look through the script to make that. But again, how do they make the impact? Make sure that they know that their impact was made and share it immediately, as well as share it at a celebration and moving forward. So that's just one example of how we do it with that particular tool.
Thank you. And those daily kind of reminders of how much progress you made are really good. And especially some of us need a daily reminder that we've had an impact or made an impact. So thank you so much for sharing that. David, I saw that you unmuted and had your hand out.
First I want to make sure this is a volunteer
Yes,
cast. Okay.
we're volunteers.
Okay.
Volunteers and staff are present. So
Mhm.
everybody
Okay.
all together.
Just heard
Right.
daily updates, and I'm thinking, whoa, daily, you guys are really on it. So we actually do we have monthly what we call community action team updates. In Northern Virginia, we have our associate director has kind of broken up her district or her region into smaller geographic territories called community action teams. Our team out here in Loudoun County in Northern Virginia, we plan our year out with what we call our big rocks, pebbles, and sand. So big rocks are the large events where we anticipate large turnouts with multiple speakers and a lot of effort and planning, etc. But they resonate really well across the community and kind of get the word out. The smaller pebbles are more like some of the activities we can do at different venues like craft breweries or wineries where we have trivia on fraud or what have you. And then of course the tabling events in the community we do our sand events along with our speakers bureau stuff. Could be pebbles and sand, but every month we talk about what worked, what didn't, what we can improve, and we kind of put a pin in things that we really love so we can maybe embellish those for future activities. And we've got a great group of folks that brainstorm quite a bit, which is really a blessing. So but that's kind of the way we rehash and kind of hot wash all of our events and hopefully glean the diamonds amidst all the other things that we do.
Thank you. And I love your rock, pebble, and sand analogy. And some of us have used that as we talk about teams and the value of the efforts that teams do. And so I love that you included that today. So thank you so much. I see in the chat, Linda said a lot of our volunteer accomplishments are recognized at the Andrus Award Luncheon and in the fall. So I know that that's a format that many states also use. Thank you, Linda. And Maryland put in New Jersey, the Speakers Bureau has a chatter group on the portal. And I wonder how many other groups are using the portal for sharing announcements. And it would be wonderful to interact with other states for sharing best practices. Does that appeal to anyone? Anyone want to share? I see two thumbs up for that, Maryland. I know we use the portal in Michigan. Anyone else drive traffic to the portal and get good interaction with the portal? And Kathy, I see you're off mute. You want to say something?
Well, as you know, and some of the others that are on here, for Michigan, we have the Shining Star College. every year, and the Shining Star is when we recognize all the volunteers, and volunteers nominate someone from their area who has achieved high or has really been involved in what AARP is doing. And so, and then at the Shining Star College, we have a dinner for all the volunteers, and they're recognized and they receive an award for everything that they've done. And then the lead volunteers, I think it's twice a year, meet in the state office and come together with all the ASDs and the executive directors and come up with from what we did last year and what the state is planning for the current year to set what we're going to be doing for that next year. I think that's it. But Mary, you know better than I do. Come on now.
Well, it's always good to have another voice, though. So thank you, Kathy, for talking about the wonderful things that we do in Michigan. And we do love a AARP college where we learn from each other and get to share best practices. And a lot of our national team comes up and they love to dance with those Motown volunteers. So yes, we have big fun with a purpose in Michigan. I see in the chat that Teresa says, we still do volunteer email where we highlight volunteer work with a story and photos. It's great encouragement for volunteers to take photos at events. And Teresa, you are a woman after my own heart. I say a picture tells 1,000 words. Even if you don't want to share any words, people can put their own words to it when they see a wonderful photo. So thank you for sharing that as well. Because I do think good old-fashioned email, that's a good way to communicate with volunteers. Deborah, I know I'm winding down with my time, but let me add some additional questions. When planning with volunteers, do you determine how activities will be completed or how many volunteers will be needed? And what are your methods? So anyone want to respond to that? So when planning with volunteers, do you determine how activities will be completed or how many volunteers will be needed for that activity or for that planning? And what is your method of involving volunteers? Silence to let people kind of marinate with that. Kathy, you have something you want to share?
Oh no, that was by accident.
Oh.
But anyway, I will say that we pick a lead for each activity, and that lead basically determines how many other volunteers they would need for the activity. It depends on the activity. If it's something, well, it depends. You know, like we did the what was it? The art fair in Ann Arbor this year. And we really needed a lot of volunteers, but you know, it really depends. So that's all. I really didn't want to talk.
Well, I thank you for contributing that. Yes, there are large events like festivals and Ann Arbor art fairs, for instance, that requires as many hands on deck as possible. And I'm sure that there are events like that throughout the US that people are doing. Would love to hear any feedback, how volunteers are involved. Amy, I know Florida does some phenomenal things.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Mary, it's nice to see you.
Good to see you too.
So yeah, here in Florida, I actually have Polk County, and I've had that since 2023 as a pilot project, and we have had bowling events there, and we get about 40 to 50 people each month. Sometimes they're the same people, but it's 40 to 50 folks. And what we do is we change out our information each month. So 1 month will be Social Security, 1 month will be caregiving, 1 month will be fraud. Those kind of information tables are great. The other thing is within the last 3 months, I have a new position, and now I'm an ASD for a region. So I am actually curious to hear how other folks do put their volunteers to work because or to help out, because I'm trying to do that in a new community and which has not been done before. The person who was before me did not have that system in place, and I have that system in place in Polk, so I'm trying to recreate it in the new territory. And it so far within the last 3 weeks, I already have 4 things scheduled for in between September into December, so that's pretty good. But I also have quite a bit of counties. So, and to get folks to be leads is actually easier than one of us think, because we just kind of ask if they can help us, and it actually helps quite a bit. So yes, I rambled, sorry. But any tips and tricks would help me as well. But
Well,
in Polk, it's going
congratulations.
very well. So it is a fully volunteer-led community. Thanks.
Thank you. Congratulations on your new area, your new responsibilities. And a lot of times just asking volunteers is the simple answer. And I see Lillian has her hand up, and then Linda, let's see what they have to say.
Hey, well, thank you, Dr. Mary. I mentioned, or I thought about something when Amy was speaking, and when Kathy, I think from Michigan, when she spoke. In North Carolina, we are divided into teams, Amy. We have 5 different teams, or regions, I'm sorry, not teams, 5 different regions. And I'm in the triangle of the Raleigh region, which encompasses several counties. So every region may do it a little differently. But to Kathy's point, we actually have what we call different positions based on what you want to do. But we have a DIY program where we have the different DIY activities that volunteers are trained in. They will sign up to do that. And the ASD will send out saying we need someone for home fit or brain health or whatever. And then those who are trained in that area will participate or sign up for that program. Same thing for Movies for Grown Up. That has been very big, and that is one that people love to volunteer for, is at MFG. So initially we were doing it with the A team, B team, C team, but then in the Triangle region, people start saying, well, I don't live in that part of the state or that city, and it's sort of hard for me to drive X, Y, or Z. So now I'm basing it on the location where they live, and I've divided that up because of the way the Wake County Triangle region is set up. I can divide it up based on where they actually live. With our other areas, tabling and all the other things that we're asked to do, it's basically right now a massive email is sent out and say, anyone interested in doing X, Y, or Z, please let us know. And I've also used the portal to assign them the positions. And then I love it because they receive an email from the portal, which will remind them what time they are supposed to be there. And you can actually in the portal make some notes to let them know the location and any other information that's pertinent to them for that particular activity that they're working on. So that's some of the things that we're doing, but we have a lot of volunteers who want to volunteer, and that's wonderful. We did a Cupid crew last year, giving out the roses for Valentine's Day, and many of the volunteers participated in that, but we also had individuals who wanted to support that, and they ended up being volunteers because they heard that we were doing this wonderful program, and they thought, oh, I want to visit the rest homes too. And we actually were able to secure some of them as great volunteers now. I'll stop.
Great. Wow. So many golden nuggets you shared, Lillian. Thank you so much. Linda?
I just wanted to add a couple other things on what Lillian was saying. The events like the shred events in different parts of the state and the DIY programs, those are done a few months or several months ahead of time because of putting them on the VCC calendar or our blog calendar for the office. But if there's a need for volunteers in particular communities, then our BOA will put those up a month ahead of time, asking, for volunteers and what the requirements are for each of the volunteers. So similar to what others have mentioned out there. But That seems to be a really good tool for getting directly to folks, letting them know exactly what it is they would be required to do and how many volunteers are needed.
Thank you, Linda. What great responses and all kind of wonderful knowledge shared. Deborah, are you going to be
I will.
next questioner?
Yes, thank you very much. And before we leave this part of the question, I have one for Amy. Based on what you said, I'd like to make sure that we all provide you with some of the information that you feel would be helpful. Could you give us your question again, please? And I'm sure what Linda and Lillian said were useful along with Dr. Mary, but could you give us your question again? Because I want to make sure we get it down, because
Sure, I know.
we're gonna go out there.
And I'm not sure how many questions I actually asked there, but I do.
What would help you in your new regional role?
What would help me is okay, so back up just a little bit. I've been here 23 years, I think, at this point. So I've seen a lot, and I've seen a lot of what Florida does, but I love these kind of calls because then I get nuggets from other states. Like I wrote down Lillian's portal and I wrote down Linda's name because we don't use the portal that way. We don't use the portal to have folks go in and schedule events or, volunteer for events. So, and we've been approached about it in the past. It's not that we haven't, but we just don't do that. So these calls are great little tidbits. So that way it does spark it again. Oh yeah, that is helpful to other people. Let me try. And this would probably be a great timing for me to try the portal. I would probably need to contact somebody to help me, but it would be a great time for me to try that with having a new community. So that was great. Just any little tidbits that somebody can help me figure out what direction to go. I feel like I'm kind of going in like 5 different directions, but just probably normal. But I have had a team call, a meet and greet. I virtually, I have met with a volunteer and gotten some activities going. I'm meeting with another one on Thursday to get more activities going. So I think I'm on the right track, but if somebody has like maybe a golden nugget that I might not have thought of, that would be an easy entry. That would be great too. Oh, Lillian.
Oh, I just want to mention, as it relates to the portal, I'm a portal champion for North Carolina. So I know that I think I know some of your portal champions in Florida. If you will get with them directly, they should give you the support you need. If not, there's a national portal group also, but I would start with your Florida portal champions.
Perfect. Ken Thomas is actually our
Oh, well, you've got it made to Ken. Everybody.
He was actually,
you don't have to worry about anything. Ken can keep you up to date.
He was actually emailing me about something else as we're on this call saying his name. So yeah, Ken's great, and Ken's been trying to get us to use the calendar. We haven't implemented that, but like I said, thank you for mentioning that, because this is probably the perfect time in this community to do it as a test pilot for Florida.
And Amy, if I could just tell you of the success that we had in Michigan using the calendar after we had a virtual training. Our ASD, Brenda Price, actually arranged for us to just go through it and schedule things so that everybody understood how to use it first. And so that has been really successful. And it's really good, the features that it has, because I do like those notifications, especially when you pick your role, whether you're a volunteer or you're a presenter. It gives you that little reminder that's really, really quite phenomenal. So that's what we did in Michigan, and it worked.
Perfect. I see Gloria has her hand up. She's here in Florida with me, so she'll probably give me some more direction too.
Gloria?
I was just going to say, Amy, that we're having a meeting at 4 o'clock a mega region. So I'll be happy to tell Ken Thomas that you have a job for him. And
Okay.
if you would pilot it, I think that would be a really good intro for the rest of the regions to start doing it, because so much of what we do is repetitive. Like we have people sending out word lists of all the activities for people to sign on, and then, you know, like a week after one's sent out, there's maybe 2 or 3 added on. So we could do this in the portal in a lot easier way. So I will pass that along to Ken and tell him he's been too lazy for a while and he needs to get to work.
And I think everybody heard, and this is being recorded, that Gloria just volunteered herself to help me out too. So it's all good, which is normal. So thank you.
Well,
Okay.
thank you very much, Amy, for clearing that up. I think we understand maybe a little bit more about what might be helpful, not just to you, but to others in this group as well. And thank you, Gloria, for reaching out to Ken and just letting him know we're thinking about him.
Because we know Ken does not have enough to do. We
No,
gotta
no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. But Gloria, you also did something that we were going to get into in this next question, and that was, what kinds of tools and information have you found essential or helpful in keeping your volunteers engaged and getting their input? So you mentioned about, I'm saying we're already talking about using the portal and wanting to encourage people to do that. What other things might you suggest to someone who's looking for ways to make sure their people get the information they need?
I have one thing we do with advocacy is we have a meeting on a monthly basis, and we may talk about local issues or the state issues or national. And one of the things they told us yesterday is they're putting some mini instructional things together in the training section in the portal. So we haven't used that section well in Florida. This is like one of the first steps that we're going to be doing. So it'll be, I guess, specific to the state of Florida, but also what we do nationally. But I think the trainings tab of the portal could be really useful going forward, and we probably need more attention to that to get everybody using it. One of the things, as a portal champion, one of the things that I find is that you do the basic training and maybe you do a topic or two, and then their interest kind of goes away. And that's like what they do. They go on the portal just to get what they need right at that time, but they don't know what other things it can do for you. So we don't utilize it to its best advantage.
Yeah.
So I think the portal is one of the tools we could probably use better.
Okay. Does anyone else have some suggestions about how we can keep people engaged and knowing what's going on? I know someone mentioned email a while ago, but we all sometimes run into the thing that people who get email get so much email they may miss the important pieces. How do we make sure that that important information is available so that we can tell the stories, we know what's going on? Any comments, suggestions?
Hey,
Go ahead, Jay. I see your
oh,
hand.
yeah, I
you
was going to
started
say, Deborah, this is not a suggestion, but just more of a question. I think especially like volunteers at a distance, when they live 3, 4, 6 hours away,
Right.
how you keep them engaged. And Gloria brought up advocacy, like how is the best way to keep those distant volunteers engaged in what you're doing, which I think is something I struggle with, at least here in Missouri.
And that's probably true. Matter of fact, I know it is for probably most of our states have some rural component or some people that are just out in a distance. And in Kentucky, we've got people from one end to the other, and we can't get them all engaged. So we're looking for new ways all the time. But I see Miss Lillian's got her hand up first, please.
Well,
And
as a
then
beginning
Dennis.
point, for engagement, we
Mhm.
meet monthly, and we have well, she's been here maybe 10 months now, 8, 9, 10 months, a new associate state director. And she has continued our monthly Zoom meetings. But what we are doing is trying to meet 2 or 3 times per year in person. And we really reach out to those who are not directly, physically located in the city of Raleigh or close proximity, to ask them to come to this in-person meeting. We don't do that a lot, but I'm sure everybody is taping their meetings or recording their meetings, so that if they're not able to attend the meeting, we send that recording out to everyone who's on our list of volunteers so that they can be kept informed as to what is going on in their particular region. So that's, I'm sure people are doing that. If not, it's a good idea to send that recording out after your meeting each month, or however often you have your meetings. I know we do it monthly.
And if you don't send it out, you can always record it and then put it in your group chatter.
In your chatter group, yay! I love
Back
that
to
chatter
the
group.
portal again, right?
Yes, yes. I was gonna say, I noticed someone typed in the chat about the chatter groups, and it is good for each region to have their own chatter group. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Miss Lillian. Dennis?
Yeah, I think you bring up an interesting question, Deborah. In yesterday's large region portal champion meeting, we had an interesting discussion regarding the portal library, portal chatter versus other ways that teams tend to communicate. And we had a interesting discussion on, because the portal limits the ability of volunteers to make individual updates to the portal library. A lot of teams have changed over to a shared Google Drive. So they can make updates of information that they believe is relevant to their activities, and enables them to share it on a timely basis without trying to submit it through a staff person who has the ability to update the library. Just another alternative to approach on how to keep your volunteers engaged.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you, Dennis. And Linda?
I just wanted to add another component to something that someone said. They were talking about having volunteers take photos of activities and things like that. And, you know, our ASD for Communications is great at putting those up in Instagram, Facebook, other kinds of things, saying, this is what we've been doing this month, or this is what we did the other day. And, you know, using every kind of social media tool to get information out there, which is a great way for recruiting, as well as keeping the whole general population out there of what's going on at AARP Vermont. So I don't know that you necessarily need to limit it to emails. I think there's a wealth of places that you can share that, and photos and videos are the best way to do that. So yeah, encourage folks to share more than just that way.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate the additional thoughts there. Now, has anybody else got a question? Because one of the things I like to do, or try to do every year, is something in the middle of the year here. Make sure that we're on target for the topics that are going to come up the rest of the year. Okay. So I have put together a small poll, which of course I'm sure you're interested in completing. Shouldn't take but a second. It's a multiple choice thing. It lists the topics that we have available at this point for 24, for the end of the year. And what I would appreciate would be getting your votes on what might be interesting to you. And I'm sorry, I'm having eye surgery tomorrow and I can't really see this.
So there's
Someone,
3 questions.
okay,
And the first question is choose the topic preference for the remainder. And the second question is what might your something else be for a 2024 topic? And that's a short answer. And the third one is what exchange format do you prefer? Occasional guest speaker, experienced panel of 3 or fewer, attendees sharing in response to co-host questions, or none of the above. And it looks like we're getting some responses. 8 people have responded already. And Deborah, I don't know how long you want to keep it open. 10 people have responded. That's about 27% of the 36 that are present. But we're getting some good responses.
We can do better than that. Come on, everybody. We're demonstrating listening. You can do it. Jump in.
and I will tell you honestly, we actually pay attention to everything you say. You know, if we get a low total of something, we're going to lose that, you know, and maybe push it off to next year. We'll try to find the speakers that you want, if that's the way you want to go. So
If you're
okay.
multitasking, come back to this meeting and vote.
Got about 21 out of the 36 present that have voted.
Yeah,
So
what a group.
That's a good number. We've got something like 40 people on, but I'd be happy if I were running for a state office with that percentage of voters. So, okay, I am going to end it now. Okay, and so you can see it looks like the one that's had the most interest was in the technology, even though the rest of them still looks like a bit of interest there. And
Do you want to share the result? Were you wanting to share the results, Deborah?
yes, because I'm standing here reading them.
I shared it. I just shared it, Deborah.
Oh, okay. We'll see. And you know, there you go. We're co-leads for a reason, right?
So you can scroll down and see the responses to number 1. It looks like Deborah said using technology had 13, 50% of everyone thought that was a good idea. About 42% of you said that what your something else might be, but I don't know what the short answer was. I don't see any. So
yeah, somehow that didn't show.
And for the third one, it looks like attendees sharing in response to co-host questions is 58%, along with an occasional guest speaker is 50%. So
yeah, okay,
we'll keep that format.
Yeah, and doesn't look like anyone said none of the above.
Yeah,
because I was hoping if they did, they'd come up with another suggestion for us. So thank you very much for that.
And Deborah, can I just ask a show of hands of volunteers? I always like to know how many volunteers we have, and then that means the remainder are staff. So either virtual or an actual show of hands. You can raise your virtual hand. Okay, okay.
Okay.
Very good. I'm giving people time because I had time trying to find that virtual hand raise button too.
Yeah.
That's volunteers, Mary. You asked volunteers to put their hand up.
Volunteers, yes.
Great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Now for the final piece for our very last minute, I know we said that we're just trying to finish out the last 4 months of this year, but if you look in the chat and you take your phone you can actually make comments and suggestions. There's a QR code to a survey, to another form that will allow you to make input for 2025. This is going to be open until December 31st of this year. So, if you don't do it today, that's fine. We'll make it available. But that's what this one is for. Okay?
So I'm sure you're
Sure.
going to show it at another meeting too, right?
Absolutely. So thank you all very much. I did want to let you know that in terms of the group chatter for the exchange, we have a list of everything that's there, and there's a way, and I'll show it one day, how you can just make sure everything comes up in the list. But for planning and events and state planning, that is section 2B. And we have 17 different resources that are in that chatter group of files that we have actually put in there. And I just thought, as you're going through the planning process, you may want to look and see what other people have done, because we've got lots of states that have put information in that group. So our next meeting is scheduled for September, but our topic will have to wait until we analyze the results of the poll that you just completed. And then we'll give you the information, hopefully quickly, about what that topic is going to be. So thank you all very much for coming today and for participating. You just so many good ideas. It's been so wonderful. And I hope that you, as I have, gotten additional information that you can use to make sure all of our volunteers stay engaged. So thank you very much. I appreciate your coming today. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you,
Mary.
everyone. And Ashley, I see that you put a message into Gloria. So Gloria, I hope you looked at the chat to see the message that Ashley sent to you.
And
I have connected with all the people. Yes, thank you.
Okay, we have kept,
Get it,
we'll keep the chat too, so that all the names, everything will be there, so that we can keep up with people. Thank you all very much.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
See you in
Bye. Thank you.
September.
Deborah, you want to stop the recording?
Well, okay.